Looking at this prompt on the screen, we are asked to evaluate the trade-off of a specific modern trend, working temporary jobs for a few months to buy extended leisure time, versus sticking to traditional year-round employment. To properly process competing criteria like this, a strong essay relies on a concession refutation framework. It will first validate the opposing side's appeal before systematically dismantling it. You can find exactly where this logical blueprint is established by looking at the structural location of the thesis statement, right at the end of the introductory paragraph. Here, the text isolates its central thesis. The author states plainly that the socioeconomic drawbacks of temporary work objectively outweigh the advantages of lifestyle flexibility. By establishing this clear polarity within the introduction, the writer immediately fulfills the primary requirement for a high-scoring argumentative system. That thesis divides the essay into two primary narrative nodes: short-term lifestyle benefits on one side and long-term socioeconomic deficits on the other. We map the text onto a flowchart with three paths: concession, refutation, and synthesis. The argument starts in the mint green concession branch, validating the counterargument. Logic then shifts into the larger lavender refutation branch, permanently dismantling the concession. Mapping these specific nodes allows a writer to acknowledge opposing data without compromising the integrity of the central thesis. We can locate the precise start of the concession argument in the second paragraph. The text highlights the core claim right away: the pursuit of freedom and a better work-life balance. The primary independent variable tested in this paragraph is temporal flexibility. The text makes a chronological assumption regarding the modern calendar, calculating a ratio where intense working months yield a high number of subsequent leisure months. As illustrated here, there is a direct correlation between this temporal flexibility and the prioritization of personal experiences over financial growth. To anchor this abstract claim, the text points to specific industry examples, identifying seasonal jobs in tourism and agriculture. The logic here relies on an inverse relationship. As an individual's lifestyle freedom increases, their financial security necessarily decreases. Supplying these specific industry examples converts abstract concepts of freedom into measurable, real-world metrics, which tightens the system's overall logic. Toward the end of that second paragraph, the text deliberately shifts away from universal claims and begins specific demographic targeting. It defines the specific demographic required for temporary work to actually be viable: individuals who lack heavy financial responsibilities. The explicit inclusion of young people serves as the primary data point for this demographic constraint. This introduces an exclusionary logic. By defining who can afford this, the text makes the arrangement mathematically impractical for the broader population. Limiting the viability of the counterargument to such a highly specific demographic inherently weakens it, perfectly preparing the system for the upcoming refutation phase. The refutation sequence triggers here. Look at the structural pivot point in paragraph 3, initiated by the phrase, "on the other hand." The focal point of the essay deliberately shifts from lifestyle benefits to financial instability. The text methodically itemizes the missing infrastructure inherent to temporary work. It checks off the lack of stable income, the lack of health insurance, and the absence of employment benefits. A causal link is then established between this missing structural infrastructure and the onset of severe psychological stress. It details specific, unexpected external variables, such as illness, that exploit these exact financial vulnerabilities. The text uses external macroeconomic factors, specifically the threat of economic downturns, to invalidate the individual choice of relying on temporary work. Shifting the rhetorical focus from abstract freedom to concrete events like illness structurally outweighs the earlier concession by raising the stakes to basic survival. The analysis then transitions from personal financial deficits to professional networking deficits. It explains the defined relationship between steady employment and the acquisition of complex, valuable skills. Because temporary employment is inherently intermittent, it actively restricts individuals from generating a viable professional network. Mapped onto these timelines, the top shows a temporary worker's fragmented path, while the bottom shows the upward trajectory of consistent employment. A consistent work history is mandatory for advancement, reaching nodes like promotions and leadership. The disparate final outputs of these two trajectories are determined purely by the internal logic the text has built. The initial appeal of taking long breaks is sharply contrasted against the eventual reality of a lack of job security. The paragraph deliberately closes with a heavy emphasis on long-term temporal focus. This creates a rhetorical symmetry. The short-term, immediate focus of the second paragraph is balanced against the decades-long focus of the third. Introducing employer psychology creates an insurmountable external barrier. This breaks the viability of the temporary work argument entirely. In the final stage, the conclusion paragraph opens by precisely restating the initial thesis parameters. The text provides its final confirmation. The systemic disadvantages of financial uncertainty objectively outweigh the individual benefits of flexibility. Structurally, we are watching the refutation logic block and the concession logic block merge into a final synthesis block. The scale drops heavily on the side of financial uncertainty, demonstrating the unequal mathematical weighting the author has assigned to these arguments. Forcing a definitive comparative judgment on the data is the final required component of a logically complete argumentative system. The final sentence functions as a bridge, moving beyond simple analysis to propose a systemic resolution. It defines a hybrid model of modern employment. The specific components of this model require stable, year-round employment combined with scheduled, occasional breaks. This exact model fulfills the structural security requirements proven in paragraph 3, while accommodating the personal fulfillment desires outlined in paragraph 2. A sustainable logical text engineers a calibrated, pragmatic solution to resolve the underlying conflict. This structural analysis and systemic breakdown is provided by the IELTS focus.